Go somewhere else. I can't take this nonsense anymore. How are you going to blame the defense?
I got the power. Screw Green Bean. Damn it.
But once you get to the sausage, I feel like we're doing something.
Go Jets.
And that's the other part of it, is the people are insanely jealous of this show. This show gets the best of the best, and it does a different way, with positivity.
He scores!
Ow, my head! No, come on.
What would you give up to see a Jets Super Bowl?
All of my friends and family.
Hit those milk thumbs, boys and girls.
Freeze frame.
Hold on to your underwear, ladies, and stand by, bitches. It's now time for Talkin' Jets with your hosts, Matt, Ryan, and Green Bean.
Welcome to Talkin' Jets. My name is Ryan, and I'll be your pilot today. I am joined alongside my lovely co-pilot, Mr. 𝐃𝐨𝐬. How you doing tonight, Dom?
I'm doing well, Ryan. Another Monday to talk about the draft. I couldn't be happier, man.
Got a whole lot of stuff going on. If you boys and girls are just heading in here, make sure you hit that like button for us. Help us out with that algorithm. We've got 3 straight hours of Jets content coming your way. You got an hour with Dom and I until 9 o'clock. Then you got the call-in show over on my channel. We'll be discussing Mike Evans and all the thoughts that go into potentially bringing him into the fold. And then at 10 o'clock, you got Dom and Green Bean with the 10 o'clock mock over on Green Bean's channel. We'll be pushing you all the way through till the end of the night tonight, so we're really looking forward to talking with you guys. We got a few things planned. We want to go over some trends that are going on in mock drafts, things that we consistently see. You know, we're going to look at the pros, the guys that do this for a living. We kind of do it for a living, a little bit of a living, tiny bit of a living, little living. But we'll get to see what their consensus is and who they consistently have in the top 10 in the first round, maybe the first 2 rounds, and give us an idea of maybe who might be there for us.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, I mean, pre-free agency is obviously a lot different than post-free agency, but I think this chart and everything, just charting out all these figures will kind of give us the warm spots of where people are, you know, the pros think people are going to go or where they're going to land, or, you know, I know in Jets world, everyone's talking about possibly trading back. So how far can we trade back to secure a guy that, you know, we really want or really would fit?
I see Jeremy in the chat. Jeremy says, 𝐃𝐨𝐬 is going to start an offensive tackle panic like he did last year with the centers. I mean, we had an offensive tackle panic last year. Could happen again. Could happen again. We were discussing a little bit pre-stream what might end up happening, and it didn't sit well with me. I want to start throwing. I was going to start swinging at Dom.
Yeah, and to enlighten the chat, we were just chatting, and I said if I had to put money one way or another, I'd probably say that Alton and Fashanu are going to be off the board by the time we pick at 10.
I don't like your analysis, 𝐃𝐸. I want a different host. I'm kidding. I love you. I do not want to do that. I'm a bum. All right, we're going to get into a few topics that have kind of popped up, more jet related in general, because I want to get your ideas on it. I want to hear, you know, how it may reflect the NFL draft, how it could change things in front of us, maybe behind us, teams that might want to come up, different topics, things of that nature. Before we do that, I do want to let you guys know we do have tickets on sale for our Talkin' Jets draft party. TalkinJets.com, TALKIN Jets.com if you guys want to get your tickets. And don't forget, we have a bunch of shows throughout the course of this week. We have the draft show tonight, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock with myself and Dom. Then tomorrow we come back with Talkin' Jets, O'Leary, Green Bean, and myself, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Then you got the Wednesday show, Armchair GM with Green Bean and 𝐒𝐶, 8 p.m. And then you have Reality Check Thursdays at 3 p.m. with O'Leary and Jeremy. So guys, make sure you head over and hit those little notification bells. You want to want to know when this stuff pops up. All right, so let's hop into some, I guess, 2 topics that we can kind of go into. I want to talk about the wide receivers first, then we'll talk about the offensive linemen. We heard Brandon Aiyuk potentially being traded. He's looking for a new deal. It seems like he may have played his last game in San Francisco. And then Mike Evans, who we all thought was going to get franchise tagged, Adam Schefter comes out last night and says, Well, hold on. The franchise tag is going to be 120% of the value of his contract from last year. So it's really going to be a $28 million contract instead of the 21.6 or whatever it was slated to be for a wide receiver in general. So I guess when you're looking at these two players in particular, which one maybe impacts the Jets the most? And do you see the Jets possibly going after either one of these guys?
In a vacuum, if I had to choose one, I think right now, I would lean Brandon Ayuk. The age is a factor. I have a propensity to like the wide receivers that can separate, and Ayuk does that just about as good as anyone. I mean, crisp route runner, so on and so forth. I think he'd be a perfect complement to Garrett Wilson. Not to say that Mike Evans couldn't be a compliment to anyone. I think Garrett Wilson would probably be the compliment to Mike Evans in that sense. But the age and probably the financials would lean, depending on what the package was, would lean me towards Ayuk. And that could throw a whole curveball into really the Jets' strategy on what they're going to do, not only in the draft, but in free agency alone. San Francisco kind of swung and missed when they gave the bag to Deebo Samuel, and right now that unfortunately the cost to be rid of Samuel is way too high, and that's going to come at the expense of probably losing Brendan Ayuk on an extension. So
now maybe there's a situation where you see Ayuk just play out his 5th-year option. Like, is he actually going to hold out, or the 49ers going to say like, hey, we're going for it one more time. You're under contract. And then we're either going to franchise tag you and trade you, or, maybe things go to shit, halfway through next year and they decide to move him at that point. I would tend to agree with you. I really do like Ayuk from an age perspective. Crisp route runner, just incredible. I don't want to give up the number 10 pick though. I think that's where I differ maybe. If we didn't need offensive tackle, or I felt confident we could solve offensive tackle in free agency, like if we only needed one tackle, then I'd feel a lot more comfortable maybe, forking over that pick or doing some type of trade where it's like, hey, we'll take 31, you take number 10. But at this point, if you got to give him a massive contract and give up the number 10 overall pick, I don't know if that really sits well with me considering the woes on the offensive line.
Well, if you think about it, the last time, Joe Douglas dipped his toes in the big name possible free agents, the Tyreek Hills and the Deebo Samuels and whatnot. If you think about the trade compensation packages that were talked about, obviously we don't know exactly what it was, but Tyreek Hill wasn't going to cost a first rounder, if I'm not mistaken.
It was 2 seconds. We had 32 and 36?
Something along those lines. It was 2 seconds and maybe some later collateral, capital, so on and so forth. So I don't think in this case, we're talking Ayuk right now, because he's the one that you would have to trade for. Listen, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Obviously, we don't have a second round pick. Or availability in 2025 as well. That could go up to like a 3. So you're trading like a 2, 3, and a 4 for a guy in Ayuk. I'm all in on that. You're not going to trade 10. That pick is too valuable. Forget about the Jets' needs and all that stuff. Even if we had to secure tackles right now, I don't think you're going to trade pick number 10 overall for Brandon Ayuk and then have to pay him. That's just not how the NFL works. You know what I mean? Now, Evans, on the other hand, if he hits free agency, if he hits free agency, which it sounds like he's going to, first and foremost, I know that he's been adamant about saying he wants to stay there. His family's there. His kids are in school. Yep. He does not want to uproot them, so on and so forth. So I find it hard to believe that he ends up leaving Tampa. He might hit free agency and then maybe they sign him. They don't franchise him, hit free agency, and then he'll end up signing back. Or maybe it's another team that's close by where he doesn't have to uproot his family. Maybe Jacksonville. I don't know. They have a wide receiver need. I don't know what their financial situation is, but yeah, if it comes down to it, and he's playing the market for a contract, we're going to come in very low on the on the totem pole, just because there's going to be a lot of other teams. Probably, some of them in better positions than ours, roster-wise, that can offer more money, that have much more cap space than we have now, or than we will create. So, I think
Yeah,
that one's a little bit more of a pipe dream.
Yeah, as much as I really like Evans, I don't see it being a very likely situation where we get him because he's talked about the Cooper Kupp deal. He wants to have that, 3 years, $80 million type contract. And I don't think the Jets are in a position to give out that type of money to a wide receiver. Especially if you want to try and hold on to, Garrett and Brees and some of those guys, depending on how much guaranteed money you're going to have to give up.
Mm-hmm.
I like Evans, but I can see him ending up possibly with the Chiefs on like a cheap deal to try and go. No, I shouldn't say a cheap deal, but like, if he wants to win a ring, that's probably his best shot to go get one. Then when you look at maybe Washington or a division rival like the Panthers who are looking for a top wide receiver option, maybe they're like, hey, we'll throw the bag at you. You're a division rival. We're weakening our opponent while also making us significantly stronger.
Yeah, I'll throw two other teams out there that make total sense in regards to, need, team structure, and salary cap availability. Houston and Chicago. Both of them have a lot. Both of them have a lot of spending capital. Both of them have a need for a true alpha, and both of them, have. But I mean, Houston already has a franchise quarterback. Chicago probably is going to draft theirs with the first overall pick. So those are two spots that could make sense. They could overpay, which kind of takes the Jets right out of the market.
Well, so you brought up something really fascinating, and it's hard to kind of decipher where we think Ayuk might go. But Mike Evans, very likely going to a team in front of the New York Jets with a ton of cap space. And if it's the Bears are sitting right in front of us at number 9. They were slated to pick Rome Odunze. I would have to imagine if they get Mike Evans and they take Caleb Williams at number 1, they're probably looking like offensive lineman maybe, or even just a trade out to get someone in front of the Jets to take their top offensive lineman. I feel like that would be more of a threat to the Jets if Mike Evans goes to Chicago.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we talked about this earlier before the stream as well. Chicago's one of those sneaky picks. Like I said, I think Alton, Olu are both off the board by 10 when it's all said and done, especially after the combine, because I think I think the juice on Olu Fashanu is going to rise back up when he tests super well, like he will, because he's a great athlete. So I think that I think that Chicago is one of the sneaky selections for an offensive tackle, especially if you take Caleb Williams at 1 and you secured, in this hypothetical, you secure Mike Evans or one of these other, big name wide receivers. You don't really need to extend or, use that 9 pick overall on a wide receiver. What you can do is fortify the wall in front of them, and you've got Darnell Wright on the right side. You can go in and get an Olu Fashanu or Joe Alt and put them on the left. They got Braxton Jones, who they've already talked about moving inside. That was the original plan for him. So to me, they're a sneaky pick. I think the Chargers are probably going to lock in a tackle as well, and obviously Tennessee is really probably the biggest threat to us. So there's 3 or 4, and then not to mention the Giants. I don't really know if the Giants would spend another top 10 pick on a tackle, but they have the need for sure. And if one of these teams, say Atlanta wants to move up to grab a quarterback, and you fall back, maybe that's your best option. So,
yeah, I'm interested to see what the Bears do, because when I look at the Chargers too, I know you mentioned offensive linemen for them, and it's entirely possible they go that route. Do you think there's anything to Greg Roman being over there and him liking the tight ends, generational prospect in the tight end coming out? Harbaugh had, obviously Mark Andrews with the other Harbaugh in Baltimore, and then they had Vernon Davis, I believe, during Jim Harbaugh's time out in San Francisco. So do you think they're licking their chops a little bit at Bowers? I think they're probably losing Mike Williams. I think they're going to find a way to retain Keenan Allen. So they're going to lose one of the 2 wide receivers. I mean, we've talked wide receiver before, O-line. You think O-line is probably where they lean?
I still think, listen, you talked about Roman and his tendencies or propensity to love the tight end. But even more than that, before his love for utilizing the tight end in the passing game is both him and Harbaugh's real meat and potatoes, and that's establishing the running the ball and establishing dominance in the run game. And to do so, you need to have a fortified line. Listen, Trey Pipkins, their right tackle, ain't it. You know what I mean? He ain't it. they got a nice, they already got a left tackle, kind of secured, but they could use a right tackle. So to me, that's the way. If I had to guess right now, before free agency and all that, that's the way I would lean for them, because I think you'll be able to, even if you get rid of Mike Williams, I think you'll be able to replace that talent in the second round, third round, so on and so forth. Again, a deep wide receiver class. Yes, it's also a deep tackle class, but the tackle market falls off steep once you get out of the top 7 picks, and those guys will all be probably gone by the time the Chargers are back up on the clock. So
I feel like the Chargers are a prime candidate to slide down in that capacity, because as long as they stay in front of the Jets, they'll get one of the tackles. Or if they still want to go at the tight end after that, they could still do that. And I think as long as you stay in front of the Bears, you're going to have your option of Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers, or O tackle 2 at the very least. Like, let's say you traded down with Atlanta or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how the quarterbacks fall out is, the fallout from the quarterbacks are going to be interesting. Teams are going to want to get up to 5. If Jaden Daniels or whatever quarterback 3, whoever it is, happens to slip. Obviously, Arizona's not taking one at 4, so I think 5 is going to be the first pick that really comes into play for a quarterback. Or if a team, and I don't know how much you believe in this, but if a team really is that high on J.J. McCarthy and wants to get up there before the Atlantas and the Minnesotas and the Denvers of the world, that might be the calling card. Starting at 5, starting at 6, and then to 9, and then ultimately to the Jets. Again, the Jets are kind of lose-lose here, man. Originally we thought that the Jets could be a good landing spot if somebody wanted to come up to get a quarterback, but I think there's teams ahead of us that could move down that would make sense. Yeah, the Giants. I don't think the Giants are going to go quarterback.
Let's talk about Denver real quick. Denver wants to give up, hey, we'll give up number 12, and we'll give you one of Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy plus a first next year. Like, the Giants might decide, hey, Neighbors or Odunze are great at number 5, but what's great is we could get 2 first-round picks, still get a developed wide receiver, and still make your pick at number 12 as well. Giants are definitely a team I look at as that could be a threat to trade down.
Yeah, and if the Bears spend their seemingly endless amount of free agent available money the right way, they're probably going to look to move down as well. They need to recoup a second round pick that they traded for Sweat. So that could be they could be in play as well. I think there's 3, like we said, 3 teams: the Giants, the Chargers, and the Bears, who I think are all in play to move down. And again, that's the kind of stuff that could help the Jets if people are moving up for positions that we don't want. But I think people are going to move up to secure quarterbacks. I think people are going to move up to secure Alter Fashanu if they fall. We're not going to have the capability to do so.
Well, one potential option at left tackle we'll get into in just a second, but I want to throw Blitzcrew's comment up onto the screen. He says, anything on Davius Richard yet? HBCU Combine quarterback. Sounds like a great guy to develop. Any other HBCU players of note? Who's your developmental quarterback? So I said this on the Talkin' Jets show the other day. Mm-hmm. If I could take a stab at a backup quarterback or a developmental quarterback, Jordan Travis is kind of the guy that I'm keeping my eye on, purely because you can IR him with the injury. I want to carry 2 quarterbacks going into the season, so ideally in my mind, whatever quarterback we're bringing in is going to be on the practice squad for a year, or at least get redshirted for a season. So that would right now, that's where I'm leaning. I mean, obviously I like some other prospects a little bit better than him, but that's sort of like a nice little benefit of going with him, is you could probably stash him for a season.
Yeah, listen, I got to be honest with you. I am not a Jordan Travis fan. Forget about the injury. He's a little bit older, right? He's 24, will be 25 during the season. But I just don't honestly think he's all that good. I mean, he's got accuracy issues, right off the bat, right from the get-go. I just don't see a lot of upside in that. Yes, he's an athletic kid. I just don't know if he's got the chops to really cut it as a quarterback. And again, that's just my opinion. I know a lot of other people are very high on him. I don't think that's area go. And again, I know everyone's talking about developmental quarterback. I don't know if we're going to see one in this draft. I think that might be a target for next year, especially if you get a second-year commitment from Aaron Rodgers, or if you don't even, because if you don't, you're going to have to, probably bring in another bridge quarterback and then draft the future. That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Travis isn't a guy that's really that's on my board. I know some people like him since we have 2 4th-round picks. I don't see I don't see I don't have a draftable grade on Jordan Travis. I know that a lot of people see him, day 3 or so on and so forth. Day 4 would be, that's still day 3. Round 4 that's still day 3, but that'd probably be a little rich. But I listen, if somebody likes him, they're gonna, it only takes one team to like a guy to go up and get him.
Yeah, I get the feeling. I don't know if the Jets are going to pull the trigger on a developmental guy, at least like early, like maybe an undrafted free agent. We heard some people talking about Sam Howell, the quarterback from Washington. Could you make a trade for him, possibly be a backup, sit behind Rodgers for 2 years? I'm not crazy on that one. I'll be honest. I don't think he's that much better than what we currently had. I mean, I guess 2 more years at dirt cheap contract is significantly better than Zach Wilson at an elevated contract. I can understand that.
Yeah.
But he doesn't perform well under pressure either. It's sort of like a similar, problem.
So here's the thing about him, and it's funny because I was on a show. I don't think I was with Nick Shine and Jeremy and Buffalo Jet fan and Tigo. We were just chopping up there, and he was one of the names that we brought up before this all came out. And I also, I did a podcast on my channel where I had a Washington Commanders insider come in and break down the team and so on and so forth, so blah blah blah. And he was dead set that he doesn't think that there's any intention whatsoever for Washington to move on from Howell. It wouldn't make sense. He's cheap. He's under contract for 2 more years. He's cheap because he was a 5th-round pick. They know if, God forbid, if something happens with the quarterback that they plan on drafting at 2, whether it's injury or slow to develop, they know that he can go in there and start. I mean, I guess they're not, they're ready to move on in the sense that they don't want to turn the franchise over to him. But I mean, it's as good. It's as good of a cost-effective security blanket you can have at the quarterback position as you possibly can. On top of it, from what he said, he said that Howell is very, very gung-ho to bring Drake May in. They were roommates in college. Drake May backed up Howell at UNC, and now Howell's ready to be the backup and help Drake May develop and so on and so forth. Supposedly they're very tight. I don't know if that links Drake May to the Commanders at all, but I'm going by what the insider's telling me, who seems to think that that's not even, it probably won't even be a discussion point. But
okay,
I'd be keen to it. Like I said, I like the fact that he's under contract for 2 years. He's cheap. But what are you going to trade for him? You give up a 4th-rounder for him? Yeah, I would. Would you give up your 3rd? Would you give up 72?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, not worth it, especially for someone you don't plan on having play. like that's one that you're hoping doesn't see the light of day, at least for a year or 2.
Yeah.
Moving off of the backup quarterback stuff, we heard David Bakhtiari expected to be cut or released by the Green Bay Packers. This is something we've been talking about for over a year now. Like basically since we were looking at his contract last offseason, it made sense for them to move off of him with a $40 million cap hit. And then when he went down week 1, everything started flying around. You just sort of assumed he was probably out at that point in time. Bakhtiari, possibly an option for the New York Jets. Like everyone's linking him to him because he's Aaron Rodgers' best buddy. How do you feel about him?
I mean, I don't know how I feel about him. It doesn't super excite me, to be honest with you, because I think I think David Bakhtiari is going to get paid. I think, the bare minimum that he's looking at is something like Dwayne Brown got, which was, at 2 for 22. And I don't know if I'm willing to make that kind of commitment to a guy who has just not been on the field for the majority of the past 4 years.
Yeah, I feel that. I understand it. I'm It depends how much stock you put into this most recent surgery that he's having, because apparently the issues that he's had since he tore his ACL back in December of 2020 have stemmed from this like shaving of the meniscus or cartilage or whatever it is in his knee. And this is supposed to be the thing that fixes it entirely. Now, I'm not saying go out there and sign him to a $20 million contract, but you sign him to the vet minimum and you give him the incentive that's like, hey, just be on the fucking field. If you're on the field, you know, chances are you're going to be playing at a really high level. So as long as you're active and on the 53-man roster and you know, taking a snap at least, I think I'm fine with it. Now, it wouldn't be the only tackle I go into the season with. Yeah. I think you have to probably have some confidence in Carter Warren if you were to do that. Have him as your backup, or maybe even AVT as the emergency left tackle. At that point, you still go out and you draft your tackle at number 10, like you were planning on doing. But I like Bakhtiari. I think we're not going to find a better offensive lineman in free agency than him. And for the risk of like a roster spot and relatively low amount of cap space, I'm okay rolling that dice or die.
Yeah, that die. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm kind of. I don't have an opinion on it yet, to be honest with you. Like it's just, to me, it's just like another, you know, kick in the pants, man. Like we just banked our hopes on two guys in Dwayne Brown and Mekhi Becton who were coming off injury, and that failed miserably. And I don't know if I'm ready to, you know, just kind of wash, rinse, and repeat that as well. Again, it might be the best option, you know, because the free agency cupboard right now is bare when it comes to left tackles. More guys will jostle free, but I will say this: I don't think whoever it is, if it's Bakhtiari, if it's Jonah Williams, if it's Trent Brown, I don't think any free agent tackle that you bring in to more than likely start on Aaron Rodgers' blind side should dissuade you from taking the best available tackle whenever you pick in the first round, whether it be 10 or later on in the draft.
I would agree, and I would go so far as even if you get like a Bakhtiari at left tackle and Olu Fashanu's there, if you like Olu more, go and make that move. You don't have to necessarily say, hey, well, now we've got our left tackle, we have to pencil in a right tackle. Get the best available offensive tackle that you could possibly get, and then figure the rest out later. If you have to move AVT over to tackle on the right-hand side and have Olu Fashanu be you know, a high-end left guard for a season, I'd be okay doing that if he doesn't think he could bump out. But I like Bakhtiari. I like the relationship he has with Aaron. I think is important. I think the health is obviously the biggest question mark here. And how much are you going to have to pay him to potentially come in here? Does he even want to come here with the MetLife turf? He's been very vocal about turf, but I feel like anywhere he's going to have to play, he's gonna hit turf regardless. I guess it omits 8 games from your home schedule of having to play on turf. But overall, half the teams in the league have turf, so it's not like he's going to avoid it wherever he goes regardless.
Yeah, I wish there was a safer or more, you know, kind of anti-last season solution, but the free agent market is just bare right now. You know what I mean? And listen, who knows if David Bakhtiari is going to pass a physical? You know, hopefully for his sake, and if he wants to continue his playing career, he does. And hopefully, if it ends up him, you know, being part of the Jets, A, it's cost effective for us, and B, we don't repeat what we saw in Mekhi Becton, who after missing 2 seasons was just a shell of himself. That's the reality. That's the biggest concern for me is, when he played the last time he played a full season, he was, you know, he was borderline elite, maybe one of the top, 3 or 4 tackles in league, but that was a long time ago. You know, that was.
But every game he's played since, like, even though he hasn't played a full season, every game he's played, he's been elite.
Yeah.
So there's that.
I think it's
like,
a really, really high risk factor in that, and I just, coming off of last season, personally, I don't feel comfortable doing that, and more so, I don't know if the coaching staff is going to feel comfortable on banking the blind side or banking the key free agent offensive lineman acquisition on a guy who's just riddled with injury.
So let me ask you this. Do you think there's going to be a team out there that signs Bakhtiari before he passes a physical? Because let's say there's a situation. Bakhtiari says he wants to be ready for training camp next year. I don't know when his next surgery is supposed to be. He's supposed to have one, I believe, in the offseason to finish up everything. But there's a real chance he's not passing a physical at the start of free agency. Maybe you're going through the draft and you're setting up your offensive line anyway, and Bakhtiari is just a cherry on top come, June 1st. Maybe the Packers save even more cap space because of the injury. They can't, maybe release him, or they have to worry about litigation with the injury. Like if you release a player with an injury designation, I believe it's a $2 million cap hit or a portion of his signing bonus. And then if he decides to file a grievance, then there's going to be some back and forth, and some cap money comes off the board at that point. But what happens if he winds up not signing with a team right away because he can't pass a physical?
Yeah, listen, if he can't, if he drags this thing out and can't pass a physical, or holds off taking the physical because he knows he's not going to pass it, that'd probably be even more of a sign for me to be hard pass on David Bakhtiari and roll the dice elsewhere, roll the dice with the next level of free agent, stopgap, and really draft the guy that I want in there.
All right. I see what you guys are talking about in the draft. Let's throw a poll question in there because I feel like this is interesting. We'll go David Bakhtiari. And then do we want to just say yes, no? Or do we want to say give some sort of stipulations? Just a simple yes, no?
Simple yes, no, man.
All right.
I don't think you're going to get a straight answer. I mean, because is it David Bakhtiari on the Dwayne Brown deal, or is it David Bakhtiari for the league minimum with, a chance to earn, similar to Dalvin Cook, every game you played, you got $1 million or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the way it's going to go. I think there'll be some sort of heavy incentive laden deal. I don't see him. I mean, honestly, if he gets 2 years, $22 million, I would pay $11 million for Bakhtiari. No questions asked. If you're telling me I could have Dwayne Brown or I could have David Bakhtiari, I'm going to take David Bakhtiari. He's
okay,
7 years younger.
Let me ask you this, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
2 million, 2 years, $22 million. Same contracts on the table. David Bakhtiari and Mekhi Becton. Who are you signing?
Bakhtiari. If I'm getting an injury-prone, offensive tackle, I am not having it be Mekhi Becton. I'm going to take Bakhtiari all damn day, all day.
Even though he's younger and probably has a little bit more. Okay.
I think Becton was so bad this year that I don't want to spend that money. I would rather gamble on the upside of someone who's proven to be an all-pro offensive tackle than someone who's been injured as much as Bakhtiari but doesn't have the accolades to back it up, if that makes sense. He's got age on his side, and he just came off a full season of being healthy for the most part. I mean, obviously he got dinged up a little bit towards the end of the season there, but I would take Bakhtiari on the same deal I would instead of Becton. If you had Becton or Bakhtiari, same amount of money, whatever it is, I'm going to take Bakhtiari.
Interesting. I don't want either of them to, my chips kind of go to the don't pass line. I'd rather pass on both of them because of the injury thing is real in both of them. And Becton's play last year, really didn't live up to the bill. But if you told me you were coming in super cheap, I'll bring Becton back and let him try to earn a spot and be a backup role or a swing guy, so on and so forth. Yeah, I don't know. I'm all for drafting a tackle, bringing in some fresh blood, some healthy guys that hopefully, our offensive staff can figure out how to develop.
I see some guys in the chat. WM says sign Bakhtiari on a minimum and then draft a stud. So that's where we kind of are not sure what happens, right? Dom thinks he winds up getting 2 years, 20 some odd million. I think he's going to have an incentive-laden deal. I don't think it's necessarily going to be the vet minimum, but I feel like he might be willing to come here if it was such an easy threshold to hit. As long as you're healthy, you're getting your money. It's almost like the Darrelle Revis contract. Darrelle Revis was as long as you're on the roster, you are getting guaranteed money from Tampa Bay. It was a monster deal, and there was no guaranteed money on the deal, totally unguaranteed. But if he was on the roster, it became fully guaranteed, and that's sort of where I lean on some of this stuff. Boys and girls, if you're hopping in the chat, make sure you hit that like button for us. We're going to do a mock draft at the end of this stream, right around 8:45. Man, we got to start blitzing. We've been talking all damn day. All right, let's get into some of the stuff that we wanted to get into tonight. I didn't realize it was already 8:40. So we're looking at some prospects. Nope, we're looking at a mock draft. This is the consensus mock draft that you've been putting together. Let me see if I can shift this around. All right.
Yeah. So while you're getting that ready, I'll explain what we're looking at here. So I've been just tracking some of the mock drafts some of the 2-round mock drafts, two rounds or more mock drafts that have just charting them and seeing where the pros are kind of gauging where these guys are going to go. So this chart here, and it goes 1 to 40.
41. Xavier Worthy is the bottom guy.
So there's 41 players who on all 5 of these mock drafts were taken in round 1 or 2. So just kind of took the average on where to talk about today. Just figured out the average on what the consensus is where the pros think they're landed, right? So, and that'll give you a gauge. Obviously, it's pre-free agency. A lot of this is going to change, but it kind of gives you a gauge on who's going to around the soft spot, the comfortable spots on where people are going to go. So, again, to my point, a lot of these guys had Olufoshanu fall into 10. 1, 2, 3 of them, I think, right? 2 of them had him fall into 10. 3 of them did, and then 2 of them had him going before. So, it skews it a little bit. Maybe if you took the high and the low, he'd probably fall around the 10. But, we talk about trading down. Well, what's a comfortable spot to trade down? If it's not Olufoshanu and if it's not Joe Alt, who is the target, right? We know that the Jets supposedly are very high on 𝐃𝐨𝐦 𝐂, right? Well, doesn't look like he's going to get much past, pick 16 here if you take the average of what these pros are saying. So that's probably, if you want to trade down, you're only going to trade back a couple spots, and you're probably not going to accumulate a lot of draft capital in the trade back if 𝐃𝐨𝐦 𝐂 is still your target. Now, if you want to go down to some of the other guys, you might be able to go a little further, right? Whether it's
I don't
Jason
think I'd
Latham.
want to go. I was going to say, I don't think I want to go below like the Raiders at 13. The Raiders to me feel like Funga's floor to me. I don't see him getting past 13 with how highly regarded he's been since the Senior Bowl. What I find interesting, as I'm like going through it, starting at the top, Caleb Williams, but then going down to Drake May, you see Chad Reuter has him at number 4. Do you know if that was a trade down to get him, or was like he thinks the Cardinals are going to take a quarterback there?
Hang on one second. Let me pull up the other spreadsheet here, the raw data. No. There must have been a trade of some sort that Chad Reuter on, because he did not have the Cardinals taking a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So he probably had somebody trading up there. I didn't note that, and I didn't write it down in particular.
Mm-hmm.
So
and then I see the 2.6 average draft position for both May and Daniels, so you can kind of see those guys flip flop between 2 and 3. And I'd imagine Marvin Harrison Jr. is the one that's sliding up a little bit. Like, so Marvin Harrison Jr. goes number 3 in his draft.
Yeah, he had the Patriots taking Marvin Harrison Jr. and then somebody trading up. I forgot who it was.
I can see the Patriots do that.
Oh, absolutely. There's a big buzz going around, guys, that the Patriots might either A, stick and pick Marvin Harrison, or B, be open to business to be willing to move down. Because if you think about it, that team is not a quarterback away from competing. So they might look, I mean, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't probably pass on, but just say they have Williams and May, on a tier alone, and they're not too high on Jaden Daniels. Well, maybe they decide, you know what, we'll just hold off. We'll get a bridge guy in here, and we'll take another developmental quarterback later. A Penix in the second round, or a Bo Nix, or something like that later on, and then worry about the quarterback next year again, because they're not a quarterback away from winning. So they have they're starting a rebuild there, and they I don't know if pulling in a quarterback that's going to be behind a porous offensive line with no weapons and a defense that's going to be totally rebuilt is really the best way to handle the rebuild. Unless they're high on Jaden Daniels or Drake May, whoever their consensus is. Um, I could see them easily sticking and picking Marvin Harrison, or maybe being open for business to trade back.
Yeah, and then when I go down a little bit further, I'm looking at Joe Alt. They don't have him getting any further than 7, which is the Titans pick. I feel like that's probably where most of us feel like he's going to go.
Yep.
Then you got Malik Neighbors. One scout has him falling down to 12, which I don't think I like Chad Rauter's rankings on a lot of stuff. He seems to be all over the place on these guys. But then you go over to, Odunze slipping past the Jets at 14. But I wanted to kind of key in on Brock Bowers because there's 3 people. Three people have him at number 5 to the Chargers. 1 has him to the Jets at 10. And then 1 to 15 in the Colts.
Yeah.
Are those kind of the 3 teams you would pencil in as like where you could see Bowers going?
Yeah, I think the variance for Bowers is probably the largest of all these top tier guys that we're talking about. He could go as high as 5. He could go as low as the 20s, right? I shouldn't say that. I think the absolute bottom for him is probably Cincinnati at 18. But 5 to 18 is the range where you could see Bowers be plucked off. I'll tell you, although I love Bowers and I'm a big fan of him, I just don't see an avenue that makes sense for the Jets to take him at 10 if the tackle room isn't resolved, right? You would have to tell me that we traded for a left tackle somehow, some way, who's going to be good there, and we brought, we spent the bag and brought in a free agent right tackle for me to be, kind of shift in focus and saying, well, maybe Brock Bowers does make sense. But listen, this draft, if anything, Joe Douglas has taught us over the past 3 years is that he beats to his own drum and his own draft board, and never say never. They talked about whether you believe it or not, whether it was staged for One Jets Drive, the show or whatnot. But if there was any truth to that draft board, Jamar Gibbs and Michael Mayer were both on it, and those are 2 positions last year that no one thought about. Right? Forget about Will McDonald. Well, obviously Will McDonald was on there, but if they had Michael Mayer as number 3 on the board at the time, who's to say they wouldn't want to trade a guy who's probably 3 times the prospect that Michael Mayer, or, talk about 3 times the prospect of Michael Mayer. I can't see it. I just can't see it unless you told me that, we secured a left and a right tackle through trade or free agency. Then I'll have that conversation.
Yeah, I don't know if I could find it in me to go Bowers at this point. Just sort of looking at the tackle board. Like for me, Alt, Fashanu, Fuaga are the 3 that I'm like, okay, definitely. And then honestly, if all 3 were gone, I'd be fine with Latham. But then you're also talking about a situation where you have one of Neighbors or Odunze possibly there. And then you have to maybe split some hairs and say, okay, well, is one of those 2 guys better than offensive tackle number 4 in the doomsday sort of situation? Is there any way you would go with a wide receiver at 10, or are you kind of, really gearing up for offensive line?
If Neighbors is at 10, I would take Neighbors and figure it out, because I think he's a very, very special talent. I happen to be very, very high on him. I have him very high on my overall board. He's the only, him and Marvin Harrison are, put it this way, in this top 10 here, this consensus top 10, Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors would be the only 2 that I would even entertain with our limited draft capital figuring out how to trade up for. I'm not to say that I think Joe Douglas will do it, but those 2 guys are the 2 guys that I would go up to get. I wouldn't go up to get Alt. I wouldn't go up to get Fashanu. I wouldn't go up to get a Brock Bowers or a Roma Dunze or anything like that. I just think that the gap between, even in a loaded wide receiver class, I think the gap between Marvin Harrison, Neighbors, and the next tier is huge. Is huge.
So I'm just looking real quick. The Jets are sitting at number 10 right now. A second-round pick is roughly 300 points. 270 is the lowest second-round pick, so we'll call it 300 points. If the Jets were to go back 300 points, you'd be looking at pick 16 would be equivalent to roughly a late third-round pick. So between, let's say the Jets were able to trade back between 16 and 22. Just
okay.
No rationale to that, just speculation wise, or conversation based. If we're somewhere between 16 and 22, when we start looking at this board, 16 you got J.C. Latham, And then as you go down, it's like Tyler Guyton and Amarius Mims is sitting at 26. Those are the types of tackles that you're talking about once you, decide to go back. And I don't know if Latham makes it that far. I think there's more offensive tackle needy teams like the Raiders, like the Saints, and then obviously the Jets could go after one as well. Like, how far back do you feel comfortable moving?
Well, listen, I'll say this, and to the chat and anyone who I'm 1,000% comfortable. I'll say this before I answer the question. I'm 1,000% comfortable sticking at 10, and if Latham's the choice, absolutely. He's my OT3 in the class. I'm also 100% if they chose to stick and pick and it was Fuaga, I'm completely fine with that as well. But to that question, like guys like Latham, guys like Mims, I think can offer. I think Latham's plug and play starter on the right side, no questions asked. I think Mims could be. And then you got Tyler Guyton, who I don't think he's gonna. Right here he's on the board at 22. Consensus. I think you're gonna see come after the combine, he's gonna shoot right up. So is Mims as well, because Mims is super athletic. I think those are two guys that are gonna kind of push up the board, and you can see him in the top half of the first round. Maybe around the Los Angeles Raider or Las Vegas Raiders pick, or so on and so forth. I think that Mims is a super, super intriguing prospect. I'd be comfortable with him, but again, it's big, it's high risk, high reward, right? Because he's talented, he's athletic, he checks off all the boxes and measurables, technical with both his feet and his hands, and so on and so forth. He's just very raw. He has only started at 8 games. Guyton is even more raw than that. He's only been playing tackle for 2 years. He started he was recruited as a defensive tackle out of high school, went to TCU and was a fullback and an H-back before transferring to Oklahoma and playing tackle the past 2 years. So he's even more green. But if you told me that one of those two guys were the best tackles out of this class 5 years from now, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Like, that's the upside that they have. I just don't know if the Jets are in the market for, high upside, even if it takes some time to develop. I think you got to get a guy that's almost game ready, and I think obviously Fuanga and Latham are absolutely game ready. I think they're plug and play. I think the next closest guy that I'd be comfortable with in that game ready status is Amarius Mims. Even though and that's no disrespect to Tyler Guyton or any Tyler Guyton fans out there. I think he's phenomenal. And he's going to be a great pick, and he's going to be a great tackle in this league for somebody. I just don't know if his timeline fits what the Jets needs right now.
Yeah, I liked Mims. I had him on my top 5 players to watch for at number 10. Now, it's not necessarily at number 10. It was probably more of a trade down scenario with him, but I love the raw talent. And it's hard to go wrong when you're picking the best player or one of the best players on the best team in college football from their offensive line. Like you saw Broderick Jones go. You've seen the Eagles just poach guys off the Georgia team. Their whole defense is basically Georgia guys. It's not a bad thing to do. And having that kind of, I guess on the offensive line, it'd be really interesting to see a team consistently go after Georgia players that went O-line. Like we've kind of penciled in Mims going to the Steelers because they took Broderick Jones last year. Maybe there's like some bookend status or whatever. But similarly to how quarterbacks and wide receivers get linked up in the pros and they have that chemistry, I wonder if teams will start to consider doing that with offensive linemen to some degree. Because you could get a guard in the second, third round generally. So if you like your tackle and you see like, oh, well, you could tie him in with someone else, and now all of a sudden you have some chemistry on the offensive line to start. Is there any like thought or consideration to anything like that? I know it's probably a little more far-fetched than quarterback wide receiver combos because of, years and whatnot, but any thought to that?
You know what? I haven't really put much thought into it, to be honest with you. Listen, I think there's people that are going to draft or rank or view people highly based on projection and traits, and then there's going to be people who are going to rank their guys and how they like them based on fit and the tape, right? There's two different school of thoughts to it. Georgia keeps putting out high quality guys. Alabama keeps putting out high quality guys. There's definitely something to it. Like I said, Mims, I think if we're talking about Mims in particular, I think he's going to be the kind of tackle that Joe Douglas likes. He definitely wants guys that are long. Mims has almost 35-inch arms. He's got the height, he's got the weight. He packs power in both, his lower half and his hands. Like, he checks off all those measurables. I just go back to the what is it, 2020? Is that the Mekhi Becton draft, 2020?
Yeah.
So I go back to that Mekhi Becton draft, and Joe Douglas had two options when he was on the board, right? He could have taken the high floor, maybe a little bit lower ceiling, kind of more sure thing, interest and worths, or he could have, or you can, and that's like your singles or your double hitter, or you can really take the swing for the home run, swing of the fences, and Mekhi Becton. And he swung for the fences. It didn't work out. Unfortunate. Maybe it would have if he stayed healthy, but he didn't stay healthy. So I think Mims is going to check all the boxes in the kind of tackle that Joe Douglas likes or wants. But I there's something in me, there's something innate in me that thinks he's going to have a shy trigger finger on that one. Like, I think he's gonna go more for steady Eddie, higher floor, bring them in, they can play right away, no questions asked. Because I think not only does that fit the timeline of what we have in the short term with Aaron Rodgers, but I think that he's going to do everything. Whether we believe it or not, I think these guys are doing everything in their power to save their jobs.
I completely agree. Let's hop over. Let's rip through a mock draft real quick. We'll do the Jets. I don't think I did. I think I only did the first round. So let's only do the first round because we don't have much going on here.
Okay.
And as far as time before we got to hop over. So let's see how this plays out for us. So the top players off the board: Caleb Williams 1, Drake May 2, Malik Neighbors 3, Marvin Harrison Jr. 4. Then you got the tackle Alt going to the Chargers, like you've thought. Brock Bowers going to the Giants. I don't really see that, but if they need a weapon and they feel like
they can get, you know what? I've talked about that with another Giants content creator, and they can get out of Waller's contract and save $13 million.
Well, yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. But like, after having him on the roster last year, are they that in love with the tight end necessarily, or did they just see him as like a nice weapon? I don't know. It's interesting. I wouldn't have really penciled them in. I was talking to one of my Giant buddies the other day, and he was saying how like, oh, well, we need offensive line. Oh, we need wide receiver. And that's sort of the way I rationalized Bowers in my head for the Jets, was like, oh, well, he's sort of help on the offensive line and sort of help in the wide receiver game. Maybe you hit two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
Then you got Odunze going to the Titans at 7. That's something that Tigo's been pretty high on, with the wide receivers going to Tennessee. Olu, the number 2 tackle, coming off the board to the Falcons. And then cornerback to the Bears. This would be a wild first 9 picks that I did not see coming.
Well, the players aren't wild. The order that they were taken and the teams that chose them is wild.
Yes.
But the players aren't wild. I mean, that to me, I think that's kind of almost spot on.
Yeah, and I mean, at this
I
point,
would probably take out. I would probably. I shouldn't say that, but like a defensive. I think there's a chance that there's maybe that defensive player, whoever it is out, and maybe that's where McCarthy goes. Not the team, but like when you're talking the 9 players, like those 8 guys plus McCarthy, or those 8 guys plus Fuanga, or those 8 guys plus whatever defensive player you like. I think those 8 of those guys make sense to be off the board before we pick a 10.
Let's see what trade options we were offered. Let's see.
Click on trades, and then the drop-down box where it says Denver. That'll show you the teams that we're offered.
Oh, so we're being offered 12 or 13, either one. Does it say what pick they're offering us, though?
Did you drop down on that Denver box?
So you can't see it. I did drop down. Yeah. It says teams interested in pick 10. It says Denver, next pick number 12, and Las Vegas, next pick number 13. But I can't see what else they were offering.
Yeah, no, they're not. They're saying those are the teams that are interested. So PFF wants you to make the offer.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. Let's see if we can let's do a little razzle dazzle with Denver. Let's see if we can do that. I want your pick 12, and I want Courtland Sutton. And I'll give you 10. I'll give you back 114. What do you think?
Huh? Go for it.
See if they do it. Oh, Cortland Sutton, and we trade down 2 picks. Let's go. What the fuck?
Oh.
I didn't get to make a pick.
Who did the computer pick for us? You forgot to click on pick number 12. That's why.
All right.
Well, we probably would have taken 𝐃𝐨𝐦 𝐂 where they
exactly. He winds up going 12 anyway. Okay, so this is what happens when you're trying to do this on the fly. Didn't know I didn't click it. Yeah, I mean, so 𝐂 winds up going there at 12. They have Daniels going all the way down to number 11. I didn't even realize he was still on the board when we drafted. So they traded up. They had Denver trading up for Nate Wiggins.
So what you have to do also on the just a food for thought PFF when you're setting up the thing, there's a lever that says randomness. You got to move that shit all the way over, and it makes it very much more, realistic.
All right, let's give it one more shot. Then we'll pick our Jets first round.
See that randomness? Move that all the way to the left. There we go.
All the way for the left. Care for positional value. We'll take it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's try this one more time.
Go for it.
All right. So Williams, May, Harrison, Neighbors, Bowers, Alt, 𝐃𝐨𝐦 𝐂, Wiggins. Wow. Okay. So interesting.
The quarterback's still not there. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nuts to me. So I would, 19 teams looking to trade down or trade up. Literally everyone.
Take the Denver trade since that's the one we were going to do before.
All right, so let's do Denver.
You got to do 12. Click on 12.
I got to click on 12, and that's why they accepted it. They may not accept it now.
Yeah, we'll see.
Sutton, I'll give you 10.
And
give you 144.
And they accept it anyway.
All right. Let's friggin' go. And look who's on the board for. Oh, they came up for Fashanu at 10.
Well, if they get rid of Garrett Bowles, who's a cut candidate, that does make sense.
I would hope the Jets wind up getting him. And we're going to take 𝐃𝐨𝐦 𝐂, right tackle.
Yes, sir.
That's an A+ move for us. So we get Cortland Sutton and the right tackle. Sign me up all damn day. All day.
Yes, sir.
All right, boys and girls, we have reached the end of our show here. If you haven't done so already, please hit that like button. We'd love to see this get up over 100 likes. We got over 240 people in here as of me saying that. So make sure you hit that. We're going to go over to the call-in show over on my channel, and then Dom's going to be back with Green Bean over on Green Bean's channel for the 10 o'clock mock as well. Dom C, anything else you want to say to our fans out there?
It is. It's always fun to be in here. We love the discourse that you guys give us in the comments. Let us know what you want us to talk about. That's Jets draft related. We'll make sure we get it on the next show or the next shows. So we're all about you guys, man.
Yeah, 100%. We love going back and looking at the comments after this show too. And I do see that our poll question, 129 people voted in it. 59% of them say yes, they want David Bakhtiari.
And 59% of you guys are on crack.
Yeah, 10% more would have been a really good joke because his number is 69 as well. But that's okay. Boys and girls, it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you. I'll be back for the call-in show momentarily, and I'll see you then.
Just go somewhere else. I can't take this nonsense anymore. How are you going to blame the defense?
I got the pouch. Screw Green Bean. Damn it.
But once you get to the sausage, I feel like we're doing something.
Go Jets.
And that's the other part of it, is the people are insanely jealous of this show. This show gets the best of the best, and it goes a different way with positivity.
He scores!
Ow, my head. No, come on. What would you give up to see a Jets Super Bowl?
All of my friends and family.
Hit those milk thumbs, boys and girls.
Freeze run.
Hold on to your underwear, ladies, and stand by, bitches. It's now time for Talkin' Jets with your hosts, Matt, Ryan, and Green Bean.